I'm not really going to talk about AI in the university because my work has all been about AI in journalism. Obviously, I've had experience. Students have started using it in my course. I could hardly tell them not to use it because I've been advocating for the use of it in journalism. And there are lots of really interesting parallels. Just listening to the conversation you've just been having there, you could just substitute the word student for journalist, and they would be saying very similar things. Obviously, there are the risks and the negatives around the use of artificial intelligence, especially with generative AI. But as you heard, huge amounts of enthusiasm for the things that it can do and the way it can open up new ways of learning and ways of being efficient. One of the slides. Yeah, it's bung up. The work I've been doing, I'm an odd chap in that I'm a professor in practice, which means I haven't got a PhD basically. And I've been at the LSE for 17 years. Before that, I was a journalist. And what I've been doing for the last 5 years is running this journalism AI project. And it's very global. And it's been working with journalists in lots of different ways. And we first of all did a big survey about 5 years ago, asking people around the world in newsrooms what they were doing with AI. And we learned from that, and we then built a whole series of training and innovation programs, which I think are very relevant. I think the same thing needs to happen around academia as well. And what we're having here today is part of that. So we created things like an AI journalism starter pack for people. We have a huge festival every year, online, 2 days, talking about it, and that showcases the work we've done. We built an email course where people can do a module every week, and they're joined up on a Slack channel. So again, they can go on a journey to explore AI and journalism. We were aware of the inequalities around journalism, especially sort of geographical, but also around the scale of newsrooms. So we built this academy for small newsrooms, which was trying to help those that don't have the vast resources. And again, an interesting point, LSE is an elite university. It should be better at dealing with this than others. And there are also inequalities around language. So we just run this academy. We're doing one at the moment in Spanish for Latin American newsrooms, because of course there is this sort of Western bias around it. And we saw, again, just reflecting from the student presentation, we've seen that old-fashioned AI, but also generative AI, can help across the board. We keep talking about writing essays in the same way that journalists keep talking about, can AI write an article? And that's probably the least useful thing it can do, because in both cases, there are so many risks of inaccuracy and basically being very boring that you don't want to do that. But there are so many other ways. And if you replace news for research here or writing essays, it's the same thing. It can help you just to think about the stuff, to find out sources of information in a much more interesting way, frankly. And it can help you when you're actually doing that process. And the students mentioned all sorts of ways. And then it can help you also in terms of what you're going to do with that knowledge, how you're going to communicate it to other people, how you might want to reformat some of the work you're doing for different audiences. We repeated the survey this year because of generative AI. And again, one of the big things that I echo so much, sorry, I've forgotten your name, but the Lebanese student, that this is a wave. This is a wave. And you can see in journalism that it's going shooting up, and in every single part of our lives, it's going to figure. And therefore, whatever your topic, your subject is, you need to know about AI, not just how you use it, but how the people that you're studying or going to work with, how they're using it as well. And obviously, there are loads of ethical concerns around it. By ethical, I mean editorial, as well as moral. And these are some of the ones that people talk to us about. I'm not going to go into in detail, but some of them actually reflect things you should be worried about, like technological dependency. Somebody mentioned who provides the systems or software or large language models that you're going to use, and do you become over dependent on them? And I think there is a real risk behind this that somebody else mentioned in a comment, that you are here to learn how to learn. You're not here to learn how to use AI tools per se. And there's a similar thing with journalism. It already happened where journalists, when search came along, it was so wonderful. It's so wonderful. You could just Google stuff and it would come up with some answers. And believe me, as an analog journalist, that is like a miracle. You know, you didn't have to go to encyclopedia or ring somebody up to find out what the weather is like in Bombay or something. You just Googled it. The danger, of course, is that you then become over-reliant and all you do is Google. And you forget to pick up the phone. You forget to have a conversation. You forget to go out of the office. You forget to try and find a news story. You forget that it's about your curiosity, your critical thinking that is valuable, not your ability to put together a tidy essay or a tidy little article that's been machine assisted. And of course, there are things you can do about this. And I think, again, we can learn, or you can see parallels between the journalism industry and academia. You know, the call for transparency. If you're going to use the AI, great, but tell me you've done that, you know, because that will explain the bizarre language in your essay. You know, and have ethical guidelines. And most departments are now doing this. And think about using AI to de-bias as well. Loads of really interesting work by people we've worked with from newsrooms, trying to use AI tools to remove biases and to identify discrimination or biases as well. And constantly keeping that human in the loop approach. Yeah, great. You cannot call me at 3 o'clock on Christmas Day. That's fine. But I do think, we all saw this with the pandemic, that in-person contact with people, look at you, is so superior and more effective. So keeping that human in the loop is so important. And remember that many tasks that you'll be doing will be done much better if they're AI free. And this last point about collaboration, I mean, it's so good that you're all talking to each other, but I think that needs to go much wider. It needs to go at an institutional level with the universities and within departments, and thinking about looking at other industries and other expertise to inform us. But just to end on a sort of positive note, I'm convinced not only is this wave going to be big, and yes, some people are going to get knocked over by it, but there are huge gains, and we've already seen this just in the last year of generative AI, but over the time we've been looking at this. And there are lots of different ways that you can think about this. You're obviously thinking about it personally in terms of your efficiency gains, but also thinking about those new tools which allow you to do things like translation, reformatting. There'll be new products and services that you'll be able to use. And as I say, you'll be able to use these tools as well to actually counter some of the harmful misinformation that there is out there in the social sciences and society itself. And this is my final point, which I think somebody else mentioned, one of the students mentioned just now. The whole point, as I said, if you come in here, is to develop your intelligence and your personal capacity. And if these resources free up time for you to do more of that, then that is going to be what's critical. Nobody comes out of the LSE and people say, oh, fantastic, they're really good at statistics. That's useful, but what they're really impressed by is your independent, critical thinking, your ability to be flexible, intellectually flexible and adaptable, and to apply that in the real world with other human beings. So if AI can allow you more space and time and resources to do that, then as with the journalism that is so under stress, just like higher education, underfunded, underpaid, precarious, etc., then that's at least some sort of basis for optimism. Thanks.